Welcome back to another episode of Living with the K's.
Good to see y'all. It's been a while.
A little bit, yeah. So today we're discussing religion and relationships. Yeah, definitely a little tricky subject, but we're gonna talk through it today.
I feel like more and more the world is becoming multicultural.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked a lot about religion. So.
Yeah, interfaith. I'd say yes, but you still have those old school people that I feel like influence a lot of how we think about religion, especially when you're coming together as a family. So I think for us, being Christian and Muslim, coming from those sort of households, we had to quickly decide what's important to us and what do we value, and then how do we want to raise our family based on those values.
I also feel like growing up in America, it's a little different with religion now too. I would say like my household was first gen, probably. It seemed like it was hardcore at first, but then...
Well, how did you grow up with religion in your household?
My father would take us to the mosque on Fridays, and my mom, I guess they kind of winged it. Like, we celebrated the holidays, but I think since I was a little kid, the Western, like, American values became more dominant until my father got really sick and was about to, like, pass away.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, almost extreme religion, like praying to God as if he was going to extend his life at the end, trying to undo everything that he did.
Yeah.
And then after he passed away, my mom just consistently was in the mosque, and I felt like she found that as like her support group. So I think it definitely influenced my upbringing.
Well, she didn't get really religious until later in the end, so that's why.
Yeah, I think they both were raised pretty religious because they grew up in Egypt.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to be religious when the entire society runs around the religion.
Well, if you go to Egypt now, they're definitely not as religious.
No, there's definitely been a lot more, I guess people are a lot more liberal when it comes to religion.
Right. So how liberal would you say you are? Like you say you're Muslim-ish.
Yeah,
culturally Muslim.
I've been using this like culturally Muslim, and I had that epiphany. Well, when I was a kid, I was the one during Ramadan in his teens who eventually was just over it, and I would like sneak into the bathroom and like would drink water during it and make believe I was still fasting.
You're not supposed to have any water.
Yeah. If you're Muslim during Ramadan, you don't eat, you don't drink from sunrise to sunset.
Yeah, which in itself is silly depending on where you live in the world, and some people are fasting for way longer and just cheating in general. But
I wouldn't call it cheating. I've got to be a little mindful of that. But I didn't fully believe what I was doing, why I was doing it. And I remember in my early teens, like talking to my mom about religion and saying, how do you even know this is the right religion? You know, and I had this own like reckoning where I felt like every single religion said that this was the only religion. So no religion said another religion was bad or wrong, right? Like Christianity wasn't saying Islam is bad. Islam wasn't saying Judaism is bad. But every single religion was saying that this is the only religion.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what if I was born into the wrong religion? And then of all the religions, I was like, this is one of the hardest. You got to pray 5 times a day. You got to fast 30 days. If at the end of it I was wrong, then I would have done all of that for nothing.
Right.
And the best answer that someone could give me at the time was, you just have to have faith.
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, like that is not a legitimate explanation to like starve yourself, or what felt like I was starving myself for a month at a time. And today as an adult, it's different. You know, I understand the value and the perspective of faith, especially as an entrepreneur, right? You make so many decisions in that way.
Yeah, and I think that faith is across all religions too, so.
Yeah, you just have to believe. I think as a kid, you know, and my mom would say this, you know, just growing up Muslim, hey, you need to find other Muslim friends. Like you need to marry a Muslim woman because of the values that come with it. I feel like we think about religion, we talk about politics and money, and those are the 3 conversations people say like don't have at the dinner table because they're likely to start a fight. And as a kid, religion was one of those like really important pieces. And the part I loved about religion was it's one of those things that could unite people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like you walk into a space and you could feel like those people are your brother, you share the same faith, and religions have values that are similar, and so you share values off of that. And off of the values you have the behaviors, and so you're acting similar, right? We go to the mosque together on Fridays, we fast together, so we're acting in the same way, and that brings us closer because we have that shared experience. But at the same time, I felt like it was incredibly divisive.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, you're Jewish, I'm Muslim. Oh, you're a Christian, he's Jewish. Oh, so we already have something that's different about us.
Right.
and we can't relate in the same way. Or if there's a group of folks here who are of different faiths, then I'm going to go and like find myself with my faith. And so I appreciated that it brought people together, but I hated that it was also very divisive.
I think for me, growing up in a Baptist church in Brooklyn, and it was Caribbean, there was the religious aspect, but also the cultural aspect, like Kareem mentioned. Like, you'd be in church and there'd be a reggae beat. You feel like you're at the club, but you're dancing to like Jesus, you know? So very different experience than
It's how you worship.
It's
Like how the praise and the worship.
Yeah, so anytime we go to church now, like praise and worship, it's always my favorite part, and it's probably because of how I was raised. But I'd say when we got together, it was very much, oh, we're spiritual. Like, we believe in God, but we weren't doing fasting every day during Ramadan, or when it's Christianity doing, I don't know, whatever sort of fast you do, like right before Easter and that sort of thing. So we sort of came up with what's important to us, and then how we want to raise our baby girl. And basically what we decided is we're going to celebrate all the holidays.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I was celebrating Halloween, I was celebrating Thanksgiving, we were celebrating Christmas.
Yeah, but
And-
those are like American. That's not.
Well, that's how we saw them,
Yeah.
right? But Christmas is like, it's Jesus
Yes.
Christ's birthday,
Yes.
right? And so
But not everybody who celebrates Christmas.
Easter, like we were hunting for Easter eggs, like in the couches, like they hid them all around the living room. And I'm not thinking about Resurrection Sunday
Yeah.
and like Jesus' reawakening.
Yeah, but the Christians were.
The Christians were.
Yeah.
And I think my epiphany was when I went to Israel actually and was meeting with other Israelis who were Jewish. Because for a while I started to disassociate with my religion. And I think the other formative event was 9/11.
Yeah.
And if you were Muslim and like externally practicing in the United States, especially in New York, it wasn't safe
Yeah.
on some days
Mhm.
because of this religious identity. And all of a sudden, because you were Muslim, you were
Yeah,
a
you've seen
terrorist.
it with riots. Yeah.
And that had nothing to do with it. So I was like, you know what? I already had my issues with the religion, and now I definitely don't want to be a target.
Associated with it. Yeah.
And so I didn't see the positive in religion until I went to Israel and I met someone who had grown up with no faith. And her family was just saying, you don't get to decide when you get older.
Yeah.
And she was telling me about a time she was in a space where everyone sort of like went and found their group.
Yeah, and she was so lonely.
She had no group, you know? And so I realized there's value in having some sort of identity, even if later on you decide, you know what, that's not for me. And the other piece I couldn't run from was my last name is Abul Naga, right?
Yeah.
So people look at Kareem Abul Naga and they're like, this guy's got to be Muslim. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to embrace it. I also think there's value in one being Muslim now and finding myself in these interfaith places.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to one of my younger brothers the other day and inviting him to church.
Yeah.
And he got all funny about it, like, oh my God, I can't do that. Like, that's going to like mess up everything that I do. And it couldn't be
Yeah.
further from the truth, right?
Yeah.
These spaces are inclusive.
Yeah.
And everyone in every religion wants to invite other folks into their space, but they're not taking the step to go forward.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a lot of background on us and how we think about it, but also it was really important from a religious standpoint and from a relationship standpoint, more importantly, that you had these conversations.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you learned, or what tips do you have for folks when you're having these conversations?
Yeah. I'd say you really need to figure out what matters for you and your partner, and don't let people from the outside kind of influence how you're thinking about it. I think especially like maybe my parents or like Kareem's mother, I think they really tried to push us moving one way or the other, and we were very much like, no, like this is how we feel and this is how we're going to do it. So don't give in to the pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think communication, really important. I mean, we've had entire episodes just talking about the importance of, but I would say specifically talking about religion.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to the other person? I wrote this down and I said, you want to talk about kids and family, right? What does that mean? Because, you know, I have siblings, my mom, they're not going to disappear all of a sudden. And so what does it look like when our families are celebrating or when they're, you know, reflecting on a holiday? Are we going to be involved? Are we going to distance ourselves?
Yeah.
What does it look like for our kids when they're growing up? And so I had that. I also put ask for expectations. You know, like, am I expected to go with you to church on Easter? Am I expected to go to church with you on Christmas?
Yeah, I think you need to have those conversations up front very early, because I know for a lot of people that is important. I could talk about my parents, and we would go to church every Sunday religiously, no pun, but my dad would never go to church. So he would make sure that like we had a dress on, and he was like, you know, you got to be there early and whatever, but he would not go himself. So I don't know, it felt very hypocritical to me that he wanted us to go and he wasn't going to go. But my mom was there every single Sunday. So I know deep down she really wanted him to go as well. And I could see that causing a lot of tension in their relationship.
I also feel like you highlighted something very important, which is that we're all in different phases and at different stages of our own like participation with religion, right? Two people might be Christian, doesn't mean they're practicing in the same way,
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're outwardly expressing themselves in the same way. And so I think that's the other important reason to talk about it, right? Like, how much does your faith influence your day to day?
Yeah.
And so I had that. And then I also, you know, to the extent that you can get over that hump and get over that hurdle, participate and support. You know, like there's nothing more valuable and important than showing up. And I think for us, I can go to church with Cadesia and not feel like, well, I have to be Christian to be there. You know, like I can invite Cadesia to the mosque and not make her feel like she has to be Muslim to exist in that space and be there. And it's different. And like, I won't say, hey, the first time I sat in a church, I was 100% comfortable, but you get over that, you know, and the more you do it, the more welcome you feel, the more included, I think the faster that sort of happens. So absolutely talk through those religious views super early in the relationship.
Yeah. I think something that we thought was important about the religion is the community. Like the first time we moved to Tampa, we were like, where are we going to find our community? And we started going to something called Home Builders, which is for couples to kind of think through Christianity with the aspect of love in their relationships. And we've met a lot of good people who have the same sort of values as us and helped us along the way in this new journey in this new city. So
yeah, I mean, the community is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
That welcoming, that unification, especially when you have that shared belief. And I will say, even though as a kid I didn't feel like I was subscribing to any one religion, I did very early on say, you know, I believe in God, and I know that like science can't explain why we're here. And then obviously so many things in my life have happened that like you just can't point to science to. You can't explain other than believing that like God is there.
Like it has to be God.
And for me, I wanted to live a life of service.
Yeah.
And I said, I have these like values that make me a good person, you know, and I want to live my life in accordance with these good values. And if that's not enough, like it's not enough, but I'm here to serve at the end of the day. And I think every religion talks about that element of it. And so I took the commonality that really resonated with me, and I was going to operate and live my life that way. And so it didn't matter so much that I need to subscribe to any one like full ideology. So I definitely have that. I had my second tip on my side was like reflect on and understand the importance to the partner and their family. So like how important is the religion to them and how important is the religion to their family? So just beyond talking about it, like really understanding that piece of it.
Yeah.
And then I would pry a little, like in a positive way. What were your experiences as a child with your religion? Some people have traumatic experiences.
Yeah.
When the subject of religion comes up, they could tell you all these stories. You know, even me, right? I was running into the bathroom and having water during Ramadan until I got old enough. And I was like, why the hell am I doing this? You know, what am I hiding from? Why am I so afraid of this? And it's my relationship with God at the end of the day. And I think one of the other beautiful aspects of religion is they say, you know, like no one is here to judge you at the end of the day. Like that judgment is left for God. I mean, so whenever anyone comes to me and says like, oh, you're not supposed to be doing this or you're supposed to be doing that, I'm like, yeah, that's between me and God.
Yeah.
You know, like, and in Arabic, it's funny too, right? Like it's benu ben rabbina, you know, like that's between me and God. Like you have your own relationship with
mind
God.
your business, basically.
Not mind your business, but like you're not going to judge me at the end of the I will be judged, right? We will all be judged, but we're not here to judge each other. So I felt like that was important. But yeah, you want to understand, is there any trauma? Is there any baggage? What are the good things that have come from it? How could we replicate those?
Yeah. My experiences were very positive. I'd say the one thing I did not agree with was being in church for like 7 hours in a Baptist church. You're literally there all day. Now church is an hour. It's super efficient. You get the word, you get the praise and worship, and you're out. So
I also think like people's religious like views evolve.
yeah.
You know, and I saw that firsthand in my own household, right? Where kind of religious, more religious, then not really religious, and then super religious. And so I think to your point, I really like that first tip of find out how important it is to someone, because this is something that could change and evolve, right? Someone may come into the relationship in the beginning and say, you know what, this isn't really super important to me, but that may be right now.
Yeah.
And so when I say like how important the religion is, I mean like how important is that religious like aspect for you? Like, will that be a deal breaker in the future if the person said, you know what, I made a mistake, I want a closer relationship with God, or I want a closer relationship with Christianity, and that means that I have to start living my life in that way, because people do have those epiphanies and realizations.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because in a relationship, you're definitely going to evolve together. So as you evolve, will that be a problem? So getting that up front is definitely important.
Yeah, and I wanted real love over our real religion, and so it was something that I knew coming in, like, was willing to compromise on. And if one day Kadesia was like all the way Christian, or I was all the way Muslim, we spoke in like, well, that's you, right? Like, you could do that for you, and are you okay with that? And I think we came to the realization, I know that we came to the realization that that was okay for us.
Yeah.
And by that same token, like, we're raising our daughter with one faith, with the expectation that when she's our age one day, right, in her 20s, 30s,
absolutely decide whatever she wants.
Yeah, make your own informed decision. You know, like, we support you. We want you to believe in God. Like, we're going to pray for you. We're going to continue to support you.
Yeah.
But we understand that this is an evolution. Like, you need to have your own relationship at the end of the day. And we want to support that. So my last tip was be open-minded and flexible if you want your inner faith to work. And I can't say, I haven't gotten my fair share of stereotypes that you get being a Muslim Egyptian going into Jamaican culture, where there just isn't an understanding of the religion and the faith.
Yeah,
and so
I'd say from both sides we dealt with that with our
yeah,
families.
that's true too. I wouldn't say that wasn't the same for you. And so you have to be open-minded.
Yeah.
You have to be flexible. I'm not saying brush it off completely. Like, if there's an opportunity to educate, but I also take it for what it is. People are curious, they're learning, and sometimes people approach that through humor.
So some questions to leave you with. So what does religion mean to you, and how would you like to incorporate that into your personal life and also a life with your partner and your future family?
I like that.
Yeah.
I think that one, and maybe again talking about how important is this, like, for us in our relationship. Like, if religion was a bucket of all the buckets, like love, relationships, children, I'd put on that same money, like, it's a different bucket. How important is this one, that if things shifted and evolved, like, would this be a deal breaker? How would this impact our relationship and marriage in the future?
And then lastly, I think it's coming back to your values and understanding what values are important to you, and that will lead how religion falls in. I
don't have anything else to add to that. I hope you all take the time to really explore this topic with your partner. And it's deep. Like, it requires vulnerability. It requires honesty. It requires some self-awareness, and also recognition that, hey, our self-awareness is going to evolve and change, but we absolutely need to talk about this and to continue to talk about it, so we can really show up and show out for one another. That's all we have for y'all. Till next time.